Yeah. All right. So yeah. So there's a phenomenon in that when new technology comes out, uh, it affects society in all kinds of different ways, and one of the ways that it affects society is art, the way folks do art and stuff like that, and all the new. I mean, you think back, when motion pictures came out and how that affected, uh, theater and like the first motion pictures were basically just the camera looking at a stage, and them acting out stuff, and so and in television, and radio, television, radio kind of caused people to focus more on the spoken word than they ordinarily would in other contexts, except maybe reading, which has a different feel to it altogether because first it's written down and then it's spoken. So it's, but the thing that really stunned me was how photography affected painting. When a new technology comes out, it competes with something else that's going on, almost always, right? When motion pictures came out, it competed with live stage. So they go, oh no, motion pictures are going to replace theater. What are we going to do? And it just stirs things up, disrupts, disrupts, and disruptive technologies. So when photography came out, I don't know if the painters actually said it out loud, but they were like, wow, folks are going to be able to take pictures of stuff, and they don't need us anymore to paint stuff, But of course, it didn't make, motion pictures didn't make stage go away. Photography didn't make painting go away. All this stuff. Television didn't make motion pictures go away, or radio go away. Right? We had radio, and then television came out. We thought, what do we need radio for when we have the picture and the sound? But radio's still around. So it eventually the incumbents kind of adapt to a niche of some sort or whatever. And in that process, the artist or the incumbent technology or whatever kind of tries to imitate or adapt or to the new thing. You see this now when folks are somebody was I can't remember where I saw it, but somebody was mentioning that artists now who do paintings, human artists, are doing paintings and putting 6 fingers on their hands and trying to imitate what the AI is doing when it generates art, which is really funny. But that happens, and that happened in the 19th century when photography came out. But first, what I'll do is I'll just play this little video here. This is a video from the Khan Academy, and it's Creative Commons, so we should be all right with that. And it talks about this painting that was done by let's see if I can pronounce his name correctly, Georges Seurat. Georges Seurat, I think is how you pronounce it. And this is a painting that I really like. This is one of my favorite paintings. It's an Impressionist painting, pointillism they call it, I think. I've got it on the wall over here, a print of it. The original is hanging in Chicago, I think. Or is it Paris? I forget. Chicago, I think. It's a huge, 7 foot by 12 foot or something. It's a big, big painting. But it's called A Sunday Afternoon on the Island of Le Grand Jatte by Seurat. And he was very much into the science of color and images and how the eye worked and all kinds of stuff like that. And so he just, spent years, studying how different colors work, and like when you put 2 colors next to each other, because of the way the retina works, you get cones and rods, right? And the sensors that sense light and dark have a much higher resolution than the sensors that sense color. So if you put two colors next to each other, if they take up a small enough amount of the field of vision, then they will look like a different color than the two colors individually. Even though you can spatially see this, what it is, the color kind of gets blended together. And anyway, he did a bunch of that stuff, trying to figure that out. And a lot of the theory is not accurate anymore. It was a long time ago. But I think at that time they knew about waves. That light was a wave. So they had some of it figured out. This was done in he began this thing in 1884 and finished it in 1886. So let's listen to what they have to say about it in this video. So I will try to find this video. Try to get it onto OBS. There we go. Okay. All right, there it is. Let's see if I got the whole thing here. No, it doesn't look like I got it in there, right? Is that better? Yeah, that's better. And I guess that you don't need my mug on there, right? I'll squish down a little bit more. Okay. All right, so let me see if this plays, and we'll listen to what they have to say about it.
Some say they see poetry in my paintings. I see only science.
We're in the Art Institute of Chicago, and we're looking at Sunday Afternoon on the Isle of the Grand Jatte by Georges Seurat.
And that was a quote by Seurat, whose ambition was to bring science to the methods of Impressionism.
What's interesting is that the science that he was thinking about has been, to some extent, overturned, and we're left with the poetry.
The science that he was referring to had to do with ways of making the painting seem more luminous, to seem brighter.
And I have to say, he's really succeeded. This is a painting that is brilliantly luminous and incredibly complex when it comes to color. So he's taking the earlier traditions of the Impressionists and he's imposing on them the science of vision and especially the science of color that had been developed by people like Chevreul and Rude. He was interested in this idea of dividing color into its components. That is, instead of trying to find the perfect purple, which is really hard to do.
You mean when you mix it on your palette?
Well, that's right, and the reason is that when you take, say, a blue and a red, and you mix them together, that red is not pure red. It's got lots of other things in it. The blue is not pure, and when you mix them together, it gets too muddy. So how do you get a pure purple that you might see in nature? Well, Seurat's solution was to take the red, take the blue, and put them next to each other so that as your eye receives that light, the light waves do the mixing themselves.
Right, and this is called optical mixture, and this is really a change from academic technique of finding that local color of an object, mixing it on your palette and then applying it. And if you think back to the Impressionist project, that what the Impressionists sought after was to really create a sense of outdoor light. And I think using this divisionist method, this idea of optical mixture, Seurat really did that in the Grand Jatte. We have a real sense of Parisians outside on a sunny day and the real strong sense of sunlight streaming through the trees.
So clearly there is this bridge back to Impressionism, and in fact the artist used the term neo-Impressionism when he described the kind of painting that he was doing. And yet this is also so far away from Impressionism. It's got the leisure of the Impressionist painting, it's got the outside, but this is not a painting that was painted plein air. This is not done directly before these subjects. He did do small sketches.
Actually dozens of drawings and oil sketches outside, that's right.
But then he goes back to the studio and makes this very composed, very carefully structured structured painting. In fact, he said that he wanted his figures to have the kind of solemnity that was found in the sculptures of the frieze of the Parthenon.
Right, so he's really wanting to bring a sense of timelessness and classicism to the art of Impressionism, and also, as you said, a sense of thoughtfulness, of composing, of not doing something spontaneous.
The figures are remarkably structured within this space, and the space itself is also remarkably organized.
And there's much more of an illusion of space than we would ever get in an Impressionist painting.
Well, almost going back to the classical tradition of landscape painting, of Claude or of Poussin, you have alternating shadow and light, which steps us back slowly into space.
And we also have a receding diagonal line that creates an illusion of space.
And yet at the same time, this is a painting, because of its technique, that really draws our eye to the surface of the canvas. So there's this really interesting tension that exists between this deep pictorial space and the very obvious, heavily worked surface. Let's go up really close and take a look. So I'm looking at the lower left corner of the painting, and I'm looking at the man who's smoking a pipe, leaning on his back. Take a close look at the way that his body is defined. You can see some of the earlier painting. I see blues, I see reds, and I see yellows, all fairly long strokes. But then I also see, painted over that, little points of color, of pinks and of blues as well, that Seurat actually added a bit later. And you can see that, especially in the shadows and the highlights at the top and the bottom, where Seurat, in a sense, creates a kind of volume.
And as we're looking at all of these different brushstrokes that are layered one on the other, I'm also noticing how the figure has really clear contours, which is something that we don't see in Impressionism. So we have a sense of line here and a form defined by line, and even modeling, so the figure really seems three-dimensional. So we know that we're in the northwest of Paris, in a place that was frequented by the middle and upper classes for leisure. We know that the other side of the river was frequented more by working class figures. And so there's this question of what Seurat is saying about class and Paris in the 19th century.
And here, art historians really disagree. And it's in part because there's a lot of ambiguity. The ambiguity of class was an issue of his moment, of his time. Class was enormously important, and it had always been in French society absolutely clear. But the cities had a way now of mixing classes, and this was a modern phenomenon.
There was a way that clothing and fashion now blurred class distinctions that were more clear before. One of the things that Seurat is doing is he's confounding the expectations of a typical viewer in the end of the 19th century. So where someone would expect to see a narrative, a pretty story that was easily readable between the figures, a sense of sentiment or emotion, Seurat's not giving us that. We have figures who don't talk to each other, don't interact, we don't have a sense of a clear narrative. It just doesn't do what 19th century viewers wanted paintings to do.
And so this painting was a challenge not only for that typical viewer that you spoke of, but for the art community as well. When this painting was first exhibited in 1886, it caused a real stir, and artists divided into camps, supporting it or detracting from it.
Well, it was so different than anything anyone was doing. I mean, it exploded what the most advanced art of the time was. At that point, in 1884 to 1886, the most advanced art was an Impressionist technique of open brushwork, open contours, paintings painted on site, outside, en plein air, with a sense of spontaneity, capturing outdoor light. Seurat took all that and just turned it on its head and created something really serious and monumental and classical and thoughtful, and everyone had to come to terms with it.
Whoops. Oh, did I get... That's right, yeah. All right, so... So that was their take on that painting, and they talked a little bit about Impressionism of that time and the transition of Impressionism and stuff like that. And so my thesis is that the invention of the camera and photography significantly influenced what was going on there. I mean, I'm not a I'm not an art critic or historian or anything. I took one art history class about a half a century ago, so I don't know anything about art, but I do know that that the Impressionists very much seemed to be influenced by what was going on with the technology of photography and the invention of the camera and all that. And Impressionism itself, I think, may have come about through the invention of the camera and photography. I don't know if anybody's written about this before. I haven't been able to find anybody who's written about it. I'm sure somebody has. If anybody knows, please put in the comments there. I'd like to read about it. But I'll tell you my take on it, just what I've figured out just looking at it myself. So if you look at the photography, they started it. It really didn't. There were some really early experiments. Well, they had the camera obscura, right? That was going way back into the 18th century. But it really wasn't until the end of the 18th century that they started experimenting with trying to fix the images that they were getting with the camera obscura. You know what a camera obscura is, where they just take a box with a hole in it and stick it, towards a very bright scene, and then they look inside the box, and it'll flip the image and put the image on the box, and they can look at it inside the box. That's what a camera obscura was, and they figured that out a long time ago. But then it was late 18th century. They started experimenting with that and trying to put material on there that would change color when it's exposed to light, like what we're doing here, right? I'm trying to expose this mushrooms to light to see if they will change color. And there are all kinds of chemicals that will do that, right? There are all kinds of stuff that will change color. We've got that photoluminescent material that I had here the other day. That will change color when it's exposed to light. Lots of different stuff will change. And so they were experimenting with that. And it was around 1800 or so, that's when the scientists and stuff were just starting to do that. And then the earliest picture that they can find that has survived from that period was 1825 or 1826, something like that. So, these painters likely didn't see photography until after that time, after the 1820s, and that's about the time that Impressionism came, I think. Let me see. I've got an article here on Impressionism. Let's take a look at that. Let's see. This is the Wikipedia page on Impressionism, and of course I got it screwed up here. There we go. Can you see that now? Yeah, okay. So let's see what it says here. 19th century art movement characterized by a relatively small, thin, yet visible brush strokes, open composition, emphasis on accurate depiction of light. See? Okay. Impressionism originated with a group of Paris-based artists whose independent exhibitions brought them to prominence during the 70s and 80s. I thought it was earlier than that. I thought there were some earlier ones. We'll look. I've got a whole bunch of different samples here of art, and I'll talk about them a little bit, and how I think that photography influenced painting. So here's 176. Yeah, all right, we can do this one, right? This is a Renoir. Take a look at this one. I'll show you this. And I'll explain what I'm talking about here, because I've been talking about this in vague terms here. I'll kind of dial in here a little bit on some of the stuff. Now, when photography first happened, it was still, they took pictures of still life. In fact, one of the first photographs ever taken was like of a street, but it was mostly still life, but there were like people there, and they moved during when the picture was taken, and you could see it was blurred a little bit. And up until let's see, 1840 I think is when they, well, in the early 1800s they were doing photography, but then in 1840 they started producing cameras that people could, where it was more widespread, and for sure they knew about it, right? These artists knew about photography by that time, by the 30s or 40s. I think most of them had seen it. And they slowly improved the chemistry and all that of the film and everything, so that they could take pictures basically at a higher ISO, right? It's a higher speed film, so that it was less blurry. The early pictures, 1840s and 50s, people had to stand still for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever, while they took their picture. But then it got to the point where it would, where this film was a lot faster, and it would only take like a few minutes, maybe a couple minutes, 2 or 3 minutes to do it. All right, so we're done with that. I'll let that cook over there because I don't want it to develop. So this one was 1876. So they were probably taking pictures of scenes like this with film, and it was a little blurry, and stuff like that. And, my thesis is that these strokes here, these long strokes and kind of blurry, almost images, is the painters trying to imitate what they were seeing on film. Because I'm sure they understood that what the painter's eye saw was interpreted by them. There was a scene that was a physical thing, and then they were seeing it, and they were making an interpretation of it and putting it on paint, on canvas. But the camera was an instrument that was just doing it, and that was an accurate, probably, more. It is more accurate, or more what is physically happening. Less interpretation involved. So maybe they were seeing that, and they were trying to imitate that. That's what I'm thinking. So these all these long strokes and stuff, and kind of makes it look kind of blurry, like the camera's moving or people were moving and stuff like that. So I think that's part of it. And then the one that we just saw the video on, Serrata's painting, he was into the pixelation, which they would have learned about later on, right? They would look at it with a magnifying glass and see the grain of the film, and so they were trying to imitate that. And color was something that was developed along with black and white, when they were doing film. It wasn't just black and white, and then 50 years later they got color. It was kind of, they were messing around with color throughout the whole process. So I think they were influenced by that. And when you look at these blurry lines, and then the other thing is the cutting off of, abruptly cutting off figures and things, the framing of the thing. When you look at a scene with your eye. Oh, hello! I got a chatter here. This is I'm live on Twitch. If you're watching this on the bot, I'm live on Twitch. And Twitch has a facility where viewers can say hello, and we have a viewer saying hello. Hello, Varon52666. How are you? We're talking about Impressionism and the invention of the camera and how that influenced it, while at the same time we're doing an experiment exposing mushrooms to light, almost photographically. So that's another aspect of it, is that they're cutting off the frame of the image here. And when you look at something with your eye and you paint it, and I'll show you some examples here of the older paintings before the camera was invented, you look at the subject, When you look at something, you say, oh, there's the subject, your brain, your eyes and everything, focus on that thing, and you're not cutting off, you're not cutting things off midway, you're looking at the whole scene. So this was something new that they had not seen before the camera was invented. Maybe in the camera obscure, maybe they saw it, but in terms of fixed photography, that competed with paintings. They thought it was doing that, so they imitated that. So let me. I got a bunch of examples here. Let me just go through these examples. So there's a Renoir. Okay, there's the one we were just talking about, and it's got the pixelation, right, which you would see, like the grain of a photograph, something like that. And he was doing all kinds of other stuff like that. But he had a little bit of that frame cut off here. There's somebody's dress or something, I don't know, on the side here. I don't know what's going on there. And this guy, you know, his leg is abruptly cut off, and I don't know, that boat's completely in there. But some of these photographs are. Oh, here's a list of 100 different photographs that I used as kind of source. You know, to look at paintings, you know, throughout time, throughout the last few hundred years, to see how they changed when the camera was invented. So here's one that was before the camera. This is 1815. You know, they were starting to do photography, but most likely this guy didn't know about, you know, had never seen a photograph before. And so this is his painting, right? And it's, you know, everything is all framed properly, and it's not blurry, you know, it doesn't have any of the effects that you would see from early photographs. And the subjects here are kind of they're all in frame just about. The only thing that's kind of cut off here is this building. So let me see if I got another one here. Here's another one. This is same thing. See, the subjects are all within. Now this does have a little bit of the I don't know what it's called. I'm not an art critic, so I don't know what that's called. But it has a little bit of that blurriness to it on this one. Let's see when this was. Maybe that was the mid 17th century. It's called the name of the painting is Mercury and Argus, which is interesting. Argus is it has to do with images and stuff too, so it's kind of interesting. Okay, I don't see where they have a category of what this is, but here's another one by the same artist. Let me see if I can. I don't know if I can show that. Yeah. Okay, it's all right. So it's the same deal, right? Everything is within the frame. Even he even kept the kept the sword all the way up and everything, even the feet. You know, he's got everything within the frame there. Nothing is cut off like that. So let's look at another one here. This one is 1880. Okay, this one is after the camera, right? So they knew about cameras when this one came out. And look at the difference here. See, they've got subject cut off at odd, you know, odd framing, you know, through here, you know. That's what a camera would do. If you took a picture, especially the cameras, you know, the early cameras didn't even have viewfinders or anything, right? They just set out a box and took the shot and then looked at what they got afterwards, you know. They couldn't even pre-frame it, the early ones. So that's the kind of thing, you know. This is kind of like what a camera would see. If before the camera, if he was going to take this picture, maybe he would have these subjects in or out of that frame rather than cut off like that, you know. And he has those brush strokes, which was in that other one. But and this is let's see when this was. This was 1880. So 1880 finished in 1891. So they had pretty good photography by then, the science, and you can see that it's pretty. It's not like the early Impressionists with the blurriness. You know, it's a good picture. It's a good photograph, right? That's what I think they were trying to imitate. Okay, here's Renoir again. Same thing, right? Now this one he's kind of got framed in. Oh, let me look at the date here so we can get that dialed in. 81. All right. But he's got this somebody over here cut off. There's a hand that's just coming from nowhere, and that's more or less framed in. But it still has that blurriness, that effect that you would get from a camera if people were moving a little bit, stuff like that. Let's see what else we got here. Okay, this is an early one. This is the 1700s, 1733 to 34. This is a huge painting, or not that huge, 61. So maybe 5 by 7 feet, pretty big. Adoration of the Golden Calf. So this is right before before they got smacked down. Let's see. So, but it's the same. It's pretty much everybody is within the frame here again, and it's not. The people who are moving are not blurry, and it doesn't look like a photograph. It looks more like a painting. You know what I'm saying? Let's see if we got another one here. Okay, now this is the one that was at the end of the 19th century, almost into the 20th century. So again, the photography would be well known and pretty good images taken. And so you look at this, and it is. See, it's very nice sharp images, but it's framed. See, there's a subject that got cut off here from the framing, And in this end, these trees are kind of haphazardly chopped off right here. If this was before the camera was invented, most likely the artist would look at that and see these trees and either put them in or out of the frame. They wouldn't just chop them off like that, real weird. Let's look at another one here. There are some exceptions, of course. Okay, so this is a really early one. This is the mid-15th century. Yeah, this is pretty big picture here, pretty big painting. Whoops. All right. Am I cutting this off? Yeah, I'm cutting this off. Sorry about that. All right. You know what? I think I actually cut these off without realizing it myself. All right. So this one is. There we go. That's the full thing. And again, everybody is in frame. The feet, everything is. There's nothing is cut off by the frame at all, and things that are moving are not blurry. Let me go back again. Let me go through these again real quick. Okay, so we saw that one. That one, and this is the one where it was a little bit blurry. Yeah, this is the one I was talking about. Can we see this here now? All right, there we go. Now you can see what I'm talking about. Sorry, the earlier ones I had them cut off at the wrong place there. So you can see where the subjects are just randomly, cut off here. Okay. This barrel, instead of just showing the whole barrel or whatever, they got to cut off at some weird place. But this is fairly, pretty far along in terms of the development of photography, so that it's a nice clear image. It's not, they don't have those fuzzy brush strokes. Okay, let's see the boating party. Let's see. Okay, that's this whole thing, so you can see it again. See that where this guy's hand is kind of just chopped off here and randomly. But this one's pretty good. So he didn't go to the extreme on cutting. It was more or less well framed, but it still had that grainy, blurry motion effect to it. And this one, right? Yeah, again, so this is, everybody's in the frame, see? Everything that needs to be in the frame is in the frame and not cut off or anything like that. But this one, this was, whoops, let me get the date on this one. Yeah, this one's almost 1900, just 18 something. Oh, shit, here. And it's got, you know, subject cut off here, this thing and the trees. Right, but it's the photography itself had advanced to the point where it was nice and more crisp and clear. Higher speed film, you know, so it'd be less blurry and all that kind of thing. So, and these artists, in my opinion, were copying the new technology, you know, that they thought they were competing with. Now this one, yeah, this is the same thing, right? Did I already show this one? I think I already showed this one too. Yeah. Everybody's in the frame. Everything needed to be in the frame. There's one little thing here that's kind of on the side that's kind of off frame, but it's not even, you can't even tell what it is. So I think composition-wise, the artist probably chose to put that in there because otherwise this would just be a empty space. There's another one. Now this one's kind of an exception because it's got these people on the bottom here. But they're kind of standing in a pit or something anyway, so maybe that's what the artist was depicting there. This was, let me get the date on this one. This was, yeah, mid-15th century, so this is a really old one. Damn it. All right, there we go. But for the most part, everything is in frame here, you know, and the subjects are fully, you know, even this guy's horse and everything is all right in the frame. The only exception are these guys who are down here in the pit, which you know, maybe that's how it actually looked to the artist, you know. So this is 1881. This one I think is an exception. Let's see what this one is. Yeah, this one is mostly, this looks like it could have been done a century earlier. You know, I think. Okay, here's another Impressionist, I think. 1851. Oh, maybe this is pre-Impressionist, I don't know. But it's 1851 is when, so they were aware of cameras by then. And where was this? Probably in Paris. Let's see where this guy was here. England. Okay. So yeah, this guy for sure would have seen a photograph before. But he got everybody in frame. But it's got that, just starting to get a little bit of that blurry look to it, you know. It's pretty good though. So this one's kind of an exception to that rule, you know. Let's see this one. Okay, I can't show this one full screen because it's got a dick pic in it, so I can't show that. But it's basically it's just before cameras were starting to come out. So this artist probably had never seen a photograph before. This is a huge painting. It's 16 feet by 23.5 feet. Huge painting. But pretty much everything is in frame, and you know, it basically looks like stuff that had been done, you know, for 100 years before. But then after the camera came out and photographs started coming, then you notice that difference. This guy right here is kind of halfway out of the frame. It looks like maybe they made exceptions to subjects that were out of frame at the bottom of the image. Like we had another one that was was an exception. Remember the crucifixion one where they had subjects that were down in that pit below. So that maybe was a little exception that they had. All right, what is this one now? This is 1586, so mid-16th century. So this is well before the camera. I don't know. Yeah, I think I can show this one. So it's everybody is in. Just everybody is pretty much in frame here. They have these two guys on the ends here, who are maybe a little bit out of frame, but their entire head is in the frame. So they look like they may have been afterthoughts anyway in this thing, kind of, the artist may have put them in later. But it's pretty much everything is within frame, even up here, all the subjects. Here's a group of people, they're all within the frame. Nobody is cut off like a camera would do. And it doesn't have that, the long brush strokes and all that look like a blurriness that a camera would make. Let's see, this one is again 1700s. Okay, this has got a nip slip in it, so I can't show you that one, but it's the same idea. Everybody is within frame. It does have a little bit of that, the fuzzy brush stroke to it, though. Let's see here. This one, okay, this was 1789. This was before cameras, so this was late 19th century or late 18th century. It's got pretty much everybody in frame, except it has this, the body that they're bringing in here is cut off, but it's cut off by something that is part of the subject. You know what I'm saying? They're coming in through a doorway. This is the doorway. It's not cut off by the frame of the canvas or the frame of the painting of the image. It's cut off by something that is part of the scene that the guy's painting. So I don't think that counts. Basically it's the same deal. It doesn't look like a photograph. It looks like a painting. Now here's one that's more like a photograph. This was in 1877. So they had pretty good cameras by then. I mean, enough that they could take a picture and expose it in just a minute, a couple minutes maybe or something, and get an image. And also, this one is kind of interesting that, Jesus, why is this doing this, man? All right. So again, see, this guy's cut off here at some weird spot here. They cut off this frame. These guys made it in. But here's this carriage behind this umbrella here at some just odd position. Your mind's eye is not going to see that. Before photography, you would not see something like this. Your mind would not even see this or even conceive of it. Something moving like that, they wouldn't. That would be very unusual for a painter to do that, before photography. And then also the other thing is they have lenses with different focal lengths. So you've got varying perspectives. This looks like this was probably a wider angle lens. It's a painting, but it's a painting of a scene that somebody may have imagined or seen in a photograph with a wider angle lens to get this unusual perspective. So let's see what else we got here. Now here's an old one again. Now this is the mid 15th century. Can I show this one? I don't think I can show this one. I don't know if I can or not. Well, let me take a look. I think isn't there an exception for art if it shows boobies in art? I don't know. I don't see any boobies in there. So this one was 1500s or mid 15th century. And this guy is putting his things in frames. Right, it's 3 different things here. But everybody's in the frame. He's got a guy, everybody is within the frame here. Nothing is cut off like you would see from a camera. Even here, you got the one little subject here, maybe, but even their head and everything, so they're basically in the shot, in the scene, whatever. So it doesn't look like a photograph. You know what I'm saying? Let me look some more here. Oh, this one was just kind of cool. I'll come back to that. I just thought that was just a cool. Yeah, these are just. I don't think these are real examples. Oh, this one is. Yeah, these last 3 are just basically just cool paintings that I wanted to talk about. But you get the idea, right? They were. The technology influenced the artists, So, I'm sure somebody's written about this. I really would like to read if somebody knows. I can't find anything on it. I read the articles on Impressionism and cameras and everything else, and I can't find anybody who talks about this. But I'm sure it's something that's so obvious. I'm sure somebody has talked about it. But that's just. I just thought that was just kind of it's an interesting concept that when new technology comes out, it affects art. It affects society generally, but the way that it affects art is kind of interesting. And like even like if you look at like films, even techniques in film and stuff like that. I remember I was saying that the earlier films were just, they take a camera and stick it on a tripod in front of a stage, and the actors would act out. And they just let the camera run. And then somebody figured out, we can do close-ups, So they did close-ups, and that was something, that was affected by technology. They had lenses that could do close-ups, and then they could get cameras that were light enough that they could move them around, and do motion shots and handheld shots. And you had that whole period of, and zoom lenses. That was another thing. When they invented the zoom lens. Let me see when they invented the zoom lens. The 70s, 60s and 70s is when they really were using the zoom lens a lot in film. Let me see when that, if they see if they say when the zoom lens was invented. Zoom, no, they don't have that. Let me see if I can find that here. Zoom lens. All right, we'll go to the Wikipedia page on zoom lenses. All right, and I'll bring that up. There we go. All right, history, here we go, history. Early form of zoom lens, okay. Okay, so somebody wrote a paper about the possibility of a zoom lens, I guess, in 1834. Let's see when they actually came out. It's the first true zoom lens which retained near sharp focus while the effective focal length of the lens assembly was patented in 1902. Early use of the zoom lens in cinema can be seen in the opening shot of the movie It in 27. That's interesting, okay. Most impressive early TV zoom lens was in 53. So yeah, they started using that technology, and it got into into filmmaking. It was something that they probably used in stills, and then they started using it in film. It's a little bit different than what I was talking about having a new technology affect the incumbent technology. But it's kind of the same thing. But yeah, that's when, I don't know, when you first started seeing it in film, in movies, actual movies. They said they used it in this one particular movie, but it was overused in the late '60s, early '70s. Throughout the '70s, they used it a whole bunch. It's a characteristic of films made in that period. They used the zoom a lot, kind of a medium speed zoom, And then another thing was when the technology got to the point where, in the '70s, when it started getting more and more into the hands of consumers and stuff, film, they had Super 8 cameras that came out that were available, well, in the '50s and '60s and stuff, but then like camcorders and stuff like that came in the late '70s or '80s. But once cameras started getting out generally, you had amateurs taking pictures and whipping the camera around and zooming in and out, doing all this crazy stuff, and then the filmmakers put that in their films. You'll see like in the '80s. In order to get who did that a lot? Oh, Battlestar Galactica. I'm sci-fi, right? So that's my examples are sci-fi. Battlestar Galactica is an example of that, where they use this when they showed the space scenes. They would do this jerk zoom, where they zoom in really fast on something to make it look like it was spontaneous or done by an amateur photographer or something to make it look more realistic. So you see that. Hi, Big Ducky Snow. I'm streaming live on Twitch right now, in case you're watching on the VOD. And on Twitch, they have a facility where viewers can chat and type in messages to me. And Stephen, Big Ducky Snow, is a friend of the channel here, and he says, "Hugs for the dub." Yeah, this is doubletribble channel. Just popping in to drop some warm vibes before beginning my evening Bible reading. Defo checking out the VOD on YouTube later. Great. Yeah, thank you for doing that, Stephen. Yeah, this is kind of an unusual stream for me. I started out with the experiment, talking about that, and then to fill in time, I'm talking about painting, actually, and how technology affected the way that painters painted paintings. And technology generally affects society and affects art and things like that. So that's kind of what I'm talking about in this one. But I also exposed some mushrooms to light. Tried to take it kind of almost like doing photographs on mushrooms. But I don't think that experiment is going to actually work. But I tried it anyway. And I haven't seen you around. I haven't seen you streaming or anything. I hope everything's going okay with you. Peace, love, and light to you, friend. I will try coming back before you end, but we'll also drop some emotes to let you and Twitch know that I'm still here. Great. Well, thank you for lurking, Stephen. I hope everything's going well with you. Haven't seen you stream and stuff lately. Heard about your trip to Montreal and all the fun that you had there, but I haven't seen. Oh, and then you started streaming car racing. I guess that's what I remember. Yeah, you started streaming games for the first time, so that's kind of cool. Yeah, shout out to Big Ducky Snow on Twitch. Everybody get over there and give him a follow. Yeah, I'd like to see you out there streaming some more, Steven. Hope you can do that. So that's another thing, right? Zoom and just all these different things, and then when amateurs got a hold of it, and all that kind of thing. I remember when in the what was it, the late, I don't know, it was early '70s maybe. Somebody had this is when they had first started getting. Well, this was maybe late '60s. It was. Yeah, because they had cameras, they had 16 millimeter and then 8 millimeter cameras, film cameras, but they got to the point where they were really small and easy to use and stuff like that, and they gave somebody did a documentary or something, I can't remember what it was, but they just gave a bunch of cameras to some kids and let them take pictures, and that was a big deal back then in the 60s or 70s. I forget when it was. And they just made a documentary out of this, what the kids were taking pictures of, and I thought that was kind of interesting because kids have different perspective and different way they see the world and stuff like that. So, of course now, right? Everybody has a camera all the time. Completely different. Back then, it was like it was unusual to have kids taking pictures with a film camera. But so that was something that they did, and it was just as the technology changes, it affects art. It affects the way things work like that. So let's take a look at our mushroom, see what's going on here. Make sure I've got my. Yeah. All right. So we expose this guy to a half hour of UVB light. This is the mushroom, UVB, and I don't see any difference at all here, unfortunately. Let me get this autofocus here, and we can see. You see anything there? Oh, there is a little bit of a line there. Maybe. Yeah, there's a little bit of something. No, that's just a bruise. Maybe, I don't know. So I don't really think it really did anything. So I guess my experiment is a failure. So that didn't do anything. I thought we'd be able to take. It would show a line or show something. But it's not doing anything. And this is the right species of mushroom that I had been using before. So it must have been like some sort of oxidation effect or something when I had those cameras. Those mushrooms that were exposed. I sliced them up and then exposed them, and then they seemed to get a little bit darker. It must have been just oxidation or something from being sliced, and then exposed to the air or something. Although that's something I could do. I could try slicing these and exposing them to light, but I don't think it's gonna do anything different. So the experiment was a failure in terms of not proving the hypothesis, but so what we learned was that at least in this case, the exposure to UVB appears to not be visible, make any visible changes to the mushrooms. But we do know from other people who have done experiments that the UVB will create vitamin D in the mushrooms. So it does cause chemical changes, but not visible, at least in our experiments. So that was something we learned. We learned something from our experiments. What else? What other? The zoom. What else were we talking about? Oh yeah, handheld stuff. Yeah, so that's been an issue, a thing in filmmaking where artists will do handheld shots, now because once cameras got out into the general public in the 80s and 90s or whatever, that's when they started doing handheld shots, and handheld shots became a big, and then they did this found footage phenomenon, where they'd find a videotape recording, right, found footage, and play that back, and it's a lot of handheld and herky-jerky type stuff, and it's all, and I think who was it? Was it Spielberg or somebody did a whole film shot on a cell phone or something, just for fun, just to see if they could do it, And then of course the graphics, CG, right? The computer graphics is a big deal. That's kind of overused now, but. And then AI. I think AI is going to have a huge impact on art. In that, when I wish I could remember where I saw that, where somebody noticed that already artists are starting to do their paintings and stuff to look like AI generated art. It's kind of funny. What is it? Art. AI imitating life, and then life imitating AI, or something. I don't know what you'd call that, but so yeah, and then AI generated movies, right? That's going to be a thing, and by the end of this decade, we'll have technology where you can narrate what kind of story you want from a film, and it will make a film for you from scratch without much intervention at all, and you just watch an AI generated film, right? You say, show me a rom-com about something, about two computers falling in love or something, and then the computer will make the movie for you, and then you can watch the movie. So there won't be, it'll eliminate the whole thing, right? It'll eliminate the script writer, the producer, the director, all the camera, the whole thing, all those jobs. They won't need, but they'll still be there, right? Those positions will still be. People will still make films the old-fashioned way, but there will be folks who want to watch a film, and we're kind of seeing that already, right? We kind of see that already with games, a little bit, where the narrative is kind of made up along the way and stuff like that. We're kind of partway there, I guess. So yeah, I think pretty soon it'll just be, you may not even need, who knows what'll happen, but it'll, there will probably always be movies, just like the hour and a half, 2 hour movie that's made by people to some extent, where the story and the images are more or less directed by people. But you also have movies that are made by AI. And maybe even, the AI could tell what kind of mood you are in just by looking at you, and reading your body language and everything. And you say, okay, show me a movie that'll make me happier or will reflect my mood, and the computer will read your mood, figure it out, generate a narrative and a film and everything based on that'll, change your mood or enhance your mood or reflect your mood or whatever. Yeah, it's going to be a brave new world, that's for sure. So that's the kind of stuff we're going to be seeing here coming up. If society can absorb it, I don't know. We'll see if society can absorb that. That's quite a bit of change for folks to absorb. Well, we kind of do it a little bit, but the fact that it's somewhat threatening to the incumbency, which is what we were just talking about, right? Photography, right? That's the painter said, "Oh no, they won't need us to paint anymore because all they got to do is take a picture," and blah blah blah, and it'll be the same thing. You know, you'll be able to just tell the computer to show you a movie, make up a movie and show it to me. You know. So does that replace the whole movie industry? Probably not. There'll probably still be people who make movies, you know, humans that make movies, but it'll be new. And then the humans will probably, you know, once the AI does that, the humans will probably imitate what the style or whatever the AI is doing, you know, in their films to some extent. So it's kind of interesting. Yeah, we still have AM radio, believe it or not. That's still out there, I think. Right? Aren't there AM radio stations out there still? So the old technology never really gets entirely replaced. We still have stage productions. We still have, you know, all the stuff. I don't know. I don't know if I can think of anything. In terms of art, I can't think of. Well, we don't have. Yeah, we still have people who still do stuff in film, but that's really a narrow niche now. Not a lot of people who are making stuff using film. They're all using video now, you know, digital. What else? Trying to think of something that was completely replaced. I mean, artistic-wise, of course, you know, horseless carriage, right? We don't have, you know, cars replace carriages and horses and stuff like that. But I mean, in terms of art, you know, we still have people who paint on canvas. We still have people who do film. We still have sculpture. We got 3D printers that can print art. You know, make up stuff. So we got AI, and I'm sure I haven't seen it, but I'm sure they've linked up AI with 3D printers to produce AI generated sculptures, right? Have they done that yet? I'm sure they've done that, right? I haven't seen it, but I'm sure they've done it. But there's still people who do sculpture. There's still people who do paintings, and you know. So that's kind of interesting. And even manufactured goods and stuff like that. You know, baskets, anything, any utensil or, you know, cups, glasses, stuff like that. They still do that. They still blow glass by hand, you know, hand blown glass. You know, it's a little bit more esoteric, but it's still there. You know, it's a little more niche. But I'm trying to think of an artistic medium or artistic. An artistic medium or anything like that has been completely replaced by technology, and I can't think of it because people still like to work. You know, artists still like to work in different media and stuff like that. So it never fully replaces it. But you can imagine what these guys were thinking, you know, back in the mid 19th century when they were taking photographs and stuff and seeing, you know, especially as you know, I don't know, I haven't read anything out of it, but I can just imagine what was written about that. Oh, this will never replace painters, you know. Talking about it, you know. This will never replace painters. Look at how blurry it is. Look at this. Doesn't it take so long? Oh, yeah. Complaining about all this stuff, and then as it got better and better and better, and then, you know, worrying about it. And we just saw it. I showed you all the examples, you know, where they were imitating what they were seeing on the photographs, because, you know, people are funny. Yeah, the changes that are coming now are just going to be just so enormous. No, we're not prepared for it at all. Who knows what's going to happen? They should be preparing people for this, and they're not. You know, by the end of the decade. Let me see if I can find something like that. Let's see if we can find a video that talks about new technology.